Marcia Boyles, and I'm delighted, as always, to introduce the star of our show, Dr. Kamaljit, Sethi, who is a primary care provider, physician over at our medical center. Now, I should also add, because the topic today is our kidneys, that in addition to being a board certified in internal medicine, Dr. Sethi is also board certified in nephrology, which is kidneys. So, Dr. Sethi, we're going to have a discussion of our kidneys, and you're going to start by telling us what kidneys do.
Yes, Marcia, indeed. Hopefully we have a lot of information to give to our residents today. So I thought it was interesting this morning as I was driving in that on WTOP, that I know a lot of folks listen to, excuse me, there was information about kidney disease. And while this is not something we were going to discuss today, it was in the context of those who have kidney disease in the United States and that they're waiting for kidney transplants. And the government is going to provide more funding so that more kidney transplants can be done. So we do have people who have kidney disease. We have those who need dialysis, and optimally, and may not particularly apply to our folks here, would need a kidney transplant. So I thought it was important to mention that. So to get back to your question, which is what is the function of our kidneys? So very simply put, the kidneys are the washing machines for our bodies.
The washing machines.
The washing machines. Now when we think about our kidneys, usually I think most folks think that the kidney function is essentially one that allows urine to be made and fluid to be gotten rid from the body. That is a great underestimation of the esteemed kidney, I might add.
The esteemed kidney.
The esteemed kidney. So in addition to filtering water, remember when you wash your clothes, you put detergent, it removes the dirt. So the kidneys, without anything else being interjected, also remove waste products, and these are chemicals. And if we didn't remove these chemicals sufficiently from the body, we would become very abnormal. So the kidneys, therefore, in addition to removing fluid, remove all of these wasteful chemicals that can be toxic to us. And I should add, thirdly, they are also important in maintaining hormonal function in the body. Now that may be completely new to most folks. So for instance, there is a hormone that helps to keep our blood counts good so that we don't become anemic. And so when we have kidney disease, we become anemic. That does not by any means say that everybody who's anemic has kidney disease. They may, but if you have kidney disease, then you can't maintain this hormone sufficiently. And there are other hormones which are also involved insofar as the kidney's role is concerned. So, you know, they do a lot for us, as do our washing machines.
So the kidney is removing the waste materials from the blood.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, it sounds like an important thing. Otherwise, clearly, those products build up in our blood.
That is correct. That is correct. And since we are so cost conscious, I will just mention again, chronic kidney disease, and we'll talk more about what that means momentarily, was the first chronic disease that the federal government began to pay for. So if you had end-stage kidney disease and required dialysis, the government would pay for it. So when the bill was signed into law in the early 70s, the cost was anticipated to be 1 million.
Total for the population?
That would require dialysis. It's now
1 million.
1 million. It's now 13.3 billion as of the WTOP news this morning. So kidney disease prevalence is actually going up, and you know, we're sort of a little squeamish when we talk about our kidneys. We're not totally comfortable talking about, you know, kidneys and urine output, but we shouldn't be. They're just like the rest of our body. And so we should talk about them. In fact, when we talk about aging, we talk about a lot of things, but we don't often talk about the kidneys. And so I think it's important for folks to know that as the rest of our bodies age, the kidneys age as well. And this has been quantified. So for every decade above 50 or 60, and you can see that I'm not being totally precise because we can't be, we don't have data to tell us that. Every decade above 50, kidney function declines by about 10%. So let's say if someone is 80 years old, that's 3 decades above 50. So kidney function, instead of being 100%, would be 70%. Just by virtue of being age 90, everything else being equal, kidney function would be 50% or lesser. In women, it would be a little lower than it would be in men. So one of the things that causes concern many times is that if you were to look at your information on the portal, you might see one of the problems listed as chronic kidney disease. And it comes as a shock to most folks who'll say, well, nobody told me I had chronic kidney disease. And that is because it is not being adjusted for your age. To say if you're 60 and your kidney function is 90, it's good, but if you're 80 and your kidney function is 50, it's still okay.
All right.
But for lab purposes, for the way we read our diagnosis right now, it would say chronic kidney disease. So when you see that on the portal as one of the list on your diagnosis, please don't be alarmed by it. Don't think that your kidneys are about to shut down and something terrible is going to happen, because it's not. As long as your kidney function is close to 40 to 50%, even let's say mid-30s, 50%, perhaps even lower, it's good for life.
All right. I think that's important information. All right, so the normal has not been adjusted for age.
When it's reported on the labs, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's an important piece of information.
So
go ahead.
Okay. So when we think about kidney disease, just like a lot of other things, we should think that it can be acute or chronic. So what acute simply means is it's something that happens over a period of days. Okay.
And it's a temporary thing?
It's temporary and it's reversible. So one of the commonest causes of it that we see here is dehydration, and probably everywhere is dehydration. So remember, if you don't put, if the water supply to your washing machine is interrupted, you're not going to effectively wash your clothes.
Right.
And so if you're not drinking enough water, or you're losing water from the body, say there's diarrhea, vomiting, or you're just not drinking enough fluids because you're nauseous or you don't feel well, that's going to cause...
Or you forget to drink water.
Or you forget to drink water. Yeah, and that's true too, because the thirst mechanism gets altered as we get older. You don't sense that you have thirst, and therefore you don't drink fluids. Or many times, I've heard folks say, well, I'm not going to drink more fluid because I'll have to go to the bathroom more often, and that's inconvenient. But at the end of the day, if we don't keep our kidneys functioning well, we are not going to be able to get rid of the waste products from the body. And so if dehydration occurs, we'll get what we call acute kidney injury. And that is reversible. And what's the treatment for that? Drink more fluids. Does that mean every time you're dehydrated, you go to the hospital? Absolutely not. It means you do need to drink more fluids. So that should perhaps bring us to the next question. How much do you need to drink every day, and what should you drink? And we'll talk about that more later. But as a statement of generality, you should drink to thirst, or if you never feel thirsty, then 4 glasses of water a day.
4.
And an easy way that I think folks can remember it, drink a glass of water with each meal, assuming you're having 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then 1 in the course of the evening, and that'll give you 4 glasses. If you can't remember even that, and while I discourage the use of plastic, but any kind of pitcher or bottle that can hold a quart, please put it in the fridge every day and hope to see it empty by the end of the day. So, dehydration is one of the important ones. And the only other one that I want to mention in passing is some drugs. So a drug that would cause dehydration, for instance, would be a diuretic, a fluid pill. So sometimes for managing heart failure, we may have to give a lot of fluid pills, and it's a double-edged sword. It can bring the fluid down, but it can go so far as to cause you to get dehydrated. So, we need that sort of monitoring, but that is reversible. Okay?
Does salt intake have an impact on kidney function?
Yes, it does. We need both salt and water. Just water alone will not do it. Just like if you have swelling, it's not just pure water. Let's say if you drank a gallon of water, you wouldn't get swelling over your feet.
Right.
Salt and water go hand in hand, always. So then let's talk about the second type of kidney disease, which is the chronic kidney disease. And that's the one that's very costly for the individual because it is associated with many problems, and it's costly in terms of the overall care. So what is chronic kidney disease? Chronic kidney disease simply means that you have a condition that is irreversible. It may be progressive, it may get worse, and may require other kinds of intervention. Sometimes, so if you have chronic kidney disease, you're particularly susceptible to dehydration worsening your kidney function, and that's important to remember. So, the kidney's very nature is it likes fluid. It doesn't like too much, and it doesn't like too little. It likes the right amount of fluid. It likes a heart that functions well. So if we have congestive heart failure, that can be associated with kidney problems. They may not be intrinsic, but because the kidney and the heart function are so related, if the heart doesn't pump enough fluid, even if you have fluid in the body, then the kidneys will register it as being there too little fluid and will sense dehydration, and in fact that's not the case. So we don't want to fool the kidney. We want to ensure we keep the heart pumping well, to ensure that the kidney function stays good as well, because we need both, obviously, not one to the exclusion of the other. So this might be a good time for us to talk about what may cause chronic kidney disease, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So when we think about chronic kidney disease, the commonest cause of chronic kidney disease in the United States and in the whole universe for that matter is diabetes. So
Type 1 and 2?
both can do it. So what is very interesting about diabetes is not everybody with diabetes is going to get kidney problems. Roughly half are going to get kidney problems. So if you don't have any kidney problems, if you have type 1 and don't have any kidney problems for 20-25 years, you're not going to get them.
Okay.
In type 2, it's a little bit more variable. We don't know what the time is because we don't know the moment of diagnosis. So we've got many folks who take insulin. That doesn't make them type 1. That just means they're insulin requiring. The vast majority who are here are not type 1. They're type 2 diabetics. No. So certainly diabetes would be the commonest cause. Those who have diabetic kidney disease frequently also have diabetic eye disease. And like all diabetics,
A retinopathy?
yes, and the retinopathy is of a particular kind. It's the one that can cause growth of blood vessels in the eye and can cause blindness. Still one of the common causes. Diabetes causes about 10,000 people to become blind every year. It's largely preventable, so it's important to think about it. So after diabetes, the second commonest cause is high blood pressure. So
And that's really common, isn't it?
yes. So roughly 1 to 4 to 1 to 5 individuals, roughly let's say 20% of people in the United States, maybe a little higher, have high blood pressure. Sadly enough, half of them don't even know they have high blood pressure because they haven't been screened. In the demographic that we have at Green Spring and facilities similar to this, above the age of 65, 1 out of 2 individuals have high blood pressure.
Half.
Half.
I didn't realize it was
Yes.
that high.
Because, you know, blood pressure continues to go up from the time we are born. We know this from some wonderful studies that have been done, longitudinal studies, measuring blood pressure from the time children are born to when they become teenagers. And their blood pressure continues to go up. And if any of us think about it, what our blood pressure was 20 years ago and what it is now, it's different. My blood pressure 20 years ago was 90/60. They always wanted me to sit down in case I would faint, and I've never fainted my whole life. But if I look at my blood pressure today, it's not 90/60. It has definitely gone up by 20, 30 points. So that is inevitable. But what we have to do is we have to know that we have high blood pressure. It's preventable. So kidney disease due to high blood pressure is preventable. And so we have to work hard to ensure that, you know, we keep blood pressure well controlled. And a third one, which is very important for us in the United States, given that we have an epidemic of diabetes in the country in all age groups, and we have obesity, between diabetes, hypertension, obesity, we've got 75% of kidney disease covered in the United States.
Okay.
And so we've got many preventive strategies that we can use, which we should. So I think there's reason to be hopeful that we can stem the tide of chronic kidney disease, but it'll take a lot of work and meticulous attention to managing these 3 problems: diabetes, blood pressure, and obesity.
Do you have any sense of the proportion of residents that have chronic kidney disease here?
So this is my general thought. I had thought that it would be very instructive to do a study at a facility like this, but we've not been able to do that for a variety of reasons. But given that everybody is above the age of 65, and our age at entry is what, 84 or 86, something like that?
I think about 84, 85.
Okay, so if that's the age group that we are looking at, by definition, I would say that more than half, maybe 3/4 of individuals who live here have chronic kidney disease as defined by numbers.
Right.
Okay, that doesn't place them at risk, but as defined by numbers.
Right.
It's what we call the eGFR. The eGFR, if you ever looked at your labs on the portal, stands for estimated glomerular filtration rate. It's always a little higher in African Americans because of higher muscle mass, and a little lower in non-African Americans. So you'll see that number. So what is the number we should be concerned with? And when we get to prevention, we'll speak about this. If you are much under 50%, and certainly if you're under 30%, you should consider yourself at being at risk. You should consider always being aware, just like you are, oh, I have high cholesterol, that you've got chronic kidney disease, so that, you know, you alert everybody else. Folks here know it, your doctors here know it. But when you go outside to see another physician, they need to know that. And they may know it, but speaking on your own behalf is the best thing that you can do, because you're advocating for yourself, right? So I think that the estimated glomerular filtration rate offers us that value. So it's also written as eGFR sometimes. So how can you know what your eGFR is? You can ask your doctor. It's a routine blood test. They can tell you what it looks like. Or if you look on the portal, you can see it there as well. So, you know this number. Know if your kidney function is 30% or 50% or 20%. It's good to know it.
All right, in terms of acting as your own advocate when you go to an outside doctor, knowing that figure, is that primarily in terms of the tests that you may be subjected to and or the drugs that you might be prescribed?
Correct. So the real reason to know this is, again, as we said, these are the power washing machines of the body. And if we give a drug which will not be cleared as effectively when the kidney function is reduced, then that dose will be modified.
Oh, okay.
So when you're in a monitored setting before any drug is given, there are many steps to prevent mistakes. Someone will know your kidney function is abnormal and adjust your dose. And when the prescription goes to the pharmacy, they will let you know, and they'll say, kidney function is at 30%. Please reduce this dose.
Okay.
So we've got multiple levels in what we call the Swiss cheese model of safety. If, let's say, one person forgets, in Swiss cheese the holes never line up, so if it passes through one hole, then at the next cut it comes to a standstill because
the
the pharmacist,
Swiss cheese.
it's called the Swiss cheese model of safety.
I have never heard the Swiss cheese model of safety.
Yes,
That's
it's very prevalent in safety culture now.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, that will allow the drug dose to be adjusted by the pharmacist. So we can only do that for drugs that are given where there's a pharmacist involved. But now, what about over-the-counter drugs, right? So are there any over-the-counter drugs that are culprits in this regard? You better believe it. At one point in Australia, the commonest cause of chronic kidney disease was pain medicines. Tons of aspirin that people were taking for headaches. APCs, as they were called, aspirin, phenacetin, caffeine. And it wasn't even the aspirin so much as the phenacetin, which was being toxic to the kidney. So nobody sells APC anymore. I think we used to get it in the United States too, but I'm not sure. But the drugs that I want for folks to be aware of today are what we call the non-steroidals, the ones that are plastered all over television. By all means, listen to the news, listen to the PSAs for all the good things, like preventing kidney disease. But the ads we see for Aleve, you know, the FedEx guy or the UPS guy taking one pill instead of, you know, 6 Tylenols, Motrin, ibuprofen, if you go to generic, naproxen, they're very effective and very tempting because they help you control pain very well. But they can be harmful to the kidneys. They can be both acutely harmful, causing kidney problems within a matter of days, and they can be harmful when taken in the long term. So my usual recommendation, given you know, that most of our folks here have reduction in their kidney function, and the vast majority have what we would call kidney function reduction below 50% or thereabouts, that if you need to take those drugs, please take them in consultation with your physician, and then take a short course for 2 or 3 days and drink plenty of water, and then stop. What you cannot do is say, well, you know, I have arthritis and I'm too busy to put up with this, and I've seen it on TV and it relieves pain. The last is true, the second last is true too. You've seen it on TV and it relieves pain. But what they haven't told you is what it can do to you. So taken in the long term, they can cause chronic kidney disease.
We all think that anything we buy over the counter is going to be safe.
Correct. So that is definitely not the case. So moving into the prevention mode again, so first thing is know your kidney function number, and if it is less than 30%, please be aware that drug dosages may need to be modified. So just like you ask your doctor, what side effects should I expect? If your kidney function is less than 30%, say, is this going to hurt my kidneys? Your kidneys are your companions here to wash out the waste. Think about them and ask about that. Secondly, the non-steroidals, Motrin type drugs, which can be harmful. Tylenol is okay. You can take Tylenol. Don't exceed 2-3 grams a day. But again, please speak with your physician, because we have many modes of therapy, excluding opioid drugs, because we don't want to do opioids. And then the last 2 things are, if you're going to have x-rays with which they're going to give you intravenous contrast, drinking the stuff is okay. But when they give it to you intravenously, and you get multiple studies over a period of days, and sometimes that can happen in a hospital, that can cause you to get kidney failure. And it's mostly reversible, but if you have some degree of chronic kidney disease, it may not be reversible. I once had a man who didn't really like to do much of anything I told him, but he remembered one thing. He was diabetic and that his kidney function was low. I said, don't let anybody shoot a dye into your veins. This man was having chest pain. They wanted to do a cardiac cath. And he went to the table and then he said, what are you doing? I said, well, we're going to put some contrast into you. And suddenly, even though he was sedated, he said, no, call my kidney doctor first. So we were able to do the procedure, but safely. And then lastly, please don't forget to drink water. I know that you may have reasons. People, may not want to drink water for many reasons, but just think, keeping yourself good is not just about taking a shower, but it's also about keeping the inside clean. Just like you want your bowels to move regularly, you want your kidneys to work as efficiently as possible.
I think this might be a good opportunity, Dr. Sethi, to mention the fact that what we are hoping to do in the fall is not only to give the Doctors In program on incontinence, but also to offer some workshops.
Yeah, sure.
I think, this is certainly tied into kidney function and is something that folks can look forward to. Let's just put it that way.
Yes,
so
indeed.
This has been very helpful. I think appropriately we might drink to drinking water.
And why not? And water is the best beverage. Tea and coffee are not the same. Nothing is the same as plain water because it contains nothing. Whereas those may contain other things that we may not want to.
Well, it contains H2O, but
yes,
not beyond that.
Beyond that.
Right.
Doesn't contain potassium or sodium.
This has been very helpful and very interesting. If folks have more questions, they can certainly email you or try to catch you to ask them. So this has been very good.